So I'm going to pack it up and call it a day for right now. Mosquitoes are coming out like crazy, and I've been going at this for a good 2 hours. I pulled all my wire harness out, all the connectors off of the engine, because I don't have any disconnects, the quick disconnects that were at the ECU box that used to sit like right there in front of the strut tower. So all of those wires have been extended from there into the interior now, so I don't have a quick disconnect point. So what I have to do now is disconnect all of the plugs from the engine, which is not too difficult. Just the upper intake manifold had to come off and all of that stuff. The AC compressor is a little problematic because the lower AC line that goes to the condenser, that goes down, it goes underneath the sway bar. So I've got to disconnect the sway bar so that I can move that AC compressor up and on top of the frame in front of the strut tower where the ECU box used to be. So that way I can get my AC compressor out of the way, I can hold it up with a rubber strap, and then hold it out of the way while I pull the engine and transmission out of the car. I'm going to jack the car up. I've actually got to move it about 6 feet, 8 feet forward so that my engine hoist with the crane can get high enough to pull the engine out with my engine leveler and all of that stuff that'll be on the hooks. But it's ready to come out as it is. I've done everything that I need to do from up here. O2 sensors are disconnected because I could reach those on this side from above, and everything else is undone. The 2 heater hoses, those are undone, and my fuel line. So all that is separated, all that's disconnected, and obviously my battery's not here. I've disconnected power since I'm working with fuel and wires and all that stuff. My battery disconnect is in the trunk. So I'm going to pick this up tomorrow morning. Alright, so the engine transmission is all out, obviously, because you've watched all of that happen. So the couple things that got hung up, so I had to cut my fuel line off, actually. I couldn't get to this spot underneath the manifold to disconnect it. I thought when I disconnected the hard line that there wasn't anywhere else that it was connected, but I could see now that they wanted it to go around the starter, which makes sense. So I just cut it down there. Doesn't matter, I've got all 6AN and 8AN lines that's going in, so I'm not using my factory fuel system anyway. I didn't want to cut it still, but yeah, I ended up cutting it. There was also this grounding point here that was behind the manifold that I didn't see, so that started pulling a little bit. Those were the only 2 things that I didn't see, that I didn't disconnect while I was pulling it out. I ended up just putting my impact on that 12 mil, spun it off. So right now, actually, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to investigate this engine. It's got almost 190,000 miles on it. At the time of pulling it out, I think it was 189,500 or something like that. And it's been turbocharged for quite a while on the stock internals. So I want to take it apart, and I just want to see, you know, because I know that this has weak internals, and obviously it's not, you know, throwing a rod yet, but I do want to see if there's any abnormal wear or anything going on inside the engine. So I'll be stripping it down, and then the only thing that I'm really keeping, other than the block, is the alternator, the covers. I'm keeping the belt tensioner because if I have to replace this, I mean, they're like 200 bucks, I think. So I'm going to replace that if it goes bad, and then the dampener, the little shock that goes between here and here. The VVTi gears, VVTi solenoid I've already transferred over to the new head. I'm going to start stripping this down now because I got to get the transmission off of the engine, and so the other guy can come and pick it up. I have the block all taken apart. I actually dropped off my crankshaft to the machine shop, and there's something that I'm going to probably have to go by the machine shop tomorrow. I want to look at one of the where one of the main bearings go on the crank to inspect something, but I'm going to talk about that later when I start talking about the main bearings. There's some wear that's on one that I don't like, so I kind of want to inspect the crank now before it gets balanced. It looked fine when I looked at it and looked it over, but now I'm seeing some wear on one of the main caps that makes me want to look at it a little bit further. Anyway, I'm going to go over my head gasket, just what it looks like right now after this engine is 190,000 miles on it, and it's been turbocharged for about the last 20,000 miles with a small turbo. It felt like it was around 300 or so horsepower, maybe 350. My clutch was slipping, so it was really hard to feel what the previous owner, like how much boost he was running, but he said it was 6 or 7 psi, and that's a lot for this high compression engine. So there was a ton of oil getting into the engine. It was dumped into there. So when you look at the pistons, not this piston, that's from something else, but there's a ton of carbon buildup on the top that was from the oil that was getting into the engine and burning up. So there's that. That's why it's a little dirty, or a lot dirty. But looking at the head gasket though, so it's pretty normal wear on the head gasket. A lot of this black stuff actually peeled off on the head or on the block as I was taking the head gasket off. So the little the coating, whatever, that's on the head gasket. But there's nothing abnormal that's like any wear like between the cylinders. So that looks good. So I'm not going to worry about decking my head or decking the block or resurfacing the head. But this is a GE head gasket. It's not a GTE head gasket. Obviously it's not going to be reused. And then coming over and just looking at the surface of the block, you see similar things. It's, you know, it just looks the same. So you can see like the little cross scratch marks from the machining that was done by Toyota. So that's still in the cylinder, and all the cylinders look like that. They look pretty good. I've coated it with oil so that I don't get any rust while it's at the machine shop. I'd rather have it coated with oil and then spray it down with something just to not have to deal with any surface rust. I am in Hawaii, so I don't want any surface rust to develop. And I left my knock sensors on so that surface area stays clean too, because I don't want any surface rust to develop there. I'm putting the non-resonant style knock sensors on, which have a wider range. These are completely pointless whenever the engine is upgraded and you're running a different compression ratio, because they only pick up a certain frequency. Anyway, coming around to the main bearings. So looking at this side of the main bearings, these actually look pretty good. There's nothing that's abnormal wear that's gotten on the main bearing surface. So that all looks pretty good. But if you come over here, actually let me show what the normal one looks like first. So this is the normal main bearing wear. This is main bearing number 3, I think. I think this is number 3. 5. And you can see like it looks pretty normal. There's no abnormal wear. There's nothing scraping down the side of it that got stuck inside that made it through the strainer and then flowed through. But on this one, see the main bearing is kind of scratched up. You see a huge scratch that goes down the middle of it. It's not supposed to look like that. I hope the camera picks it up. It looks like it's picking it up, but I don't like that. And I'm gonna have to go by the machine shop and then inspect the crank that main bearing sits on. When you come over here to the rods, so this is the normal rod wear. So this is that's just sitting for like size comparison. I wanted to compare. I wanted to visually see the difference in the 2JZ GTE piston and the 2JZ GE piston. This is actually a 3S GTE piston. It's the same size as the 2JZ GTE piston and rod. I just had I just pulled it out for size comparison between that. Since this is the same size as the GTE rod, I wanted to compare it to the 2JZ GE IS300, which is pretty skinny. These are pretty small little things. So this has normal bearing wear. This is 190,000 miles and it still looks pretty good. Nothing abnormal. When you come over to this one, so this, you can see there's some wear there, which is actually due to oil starvation, not having enough oil or having old oil that's not lubricating well enough. So it ends up wearing away this top part of the bearing. So rod bearings 1 and 2 look like this one and this one. Rod bearings 3 and 4 look like this, so that one and that one. And then rod bearings 5 and 6, they look like this. This has a little bit of a mark on the bearing itself. It's not anything on it. That's actually like a little mark. This could just be from me taking it out and I mean, I could have done that, but it is in line with the way that the rod bearing moves. Then coming over to the head, it's actually in really good shape. I have all this plastic wrap around because I was actually intending to sell it on eBay, and then shipping ended up being way too expensive coming out of Hawaii. So I'm just I just unwrapped it, and I'm just gonna sell it locally. But running through and talking about just the condition of the inside of the valve cover, underneath the valve cover inside the head, there's really not a lot of, I haven't done a lot of cleaning on this. I really just took it apart and left it as it is. So there wasn't any sludge, any buildup or anything, which is really good. I like that. Obviously no milky oil to show that there was any coolant getting in the oil. So that's good. And then just looking at the condition of the valve buckets. So this is the last area that the oil gets to on the head, on the valves. And this one has slightly more wear on it than all the other ones. Like the lobe was kind of pushing on it. It looks like more in the middle than on the outside. So it's, yeah. So it has a little more wear, like right there where it was pressing down a little harder, but it's really not bad. I numbered all of these because I had pulled the valve buckets out and I had them all wrapped up individually, but I just put them back in, oiled everything up really well. But it's really, this is as it was when I pulled it apart. The cams are still in really good shape. That's not the cams over there. Those are the Aristo cams. I'm doing a video next talking about the differences between the Aristo VVTi and the IS300 VVTi. So that'll be coming up in about a week after I post this video. But yeah, it's overall it's still in really good shape. So whoever ends up getting this head ends up getting a pretty good head. But that's it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, leave suggested ideas down below of things that you'd like me to see me do videos on. And as always, God bless you guys.